Hello and welcome to this seminar. My name is Omer Shapira. I'm a professor of law at the Ono Academic College Faculty of Law, Israel, and I also chair the IMI Ethics Committee. And my talk to you today will be about the IMI Ethics Committee, and the title of my talk is Working Towards Transnational Standards of Mediation Ethics. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, I'm an associate professor of law and senior lecturer at Ono Academic College, Faculty of Law. I teach the law, but my main research is professional ethics and mediation ethics. And I wrote two relevant publications that I'll mention here, a book titled A Theory of Mediators Ethics from 2016, and a book on or a manual guide for mediators, for practitioners, that was published in 2021 in the American Bar Association's publication house. I'm a member of the Advisory Committee on Mediation to the Ministry of Justice in Israel, and I chair, as I said, the IMI Ethics Committee, and also I chair an Israeli forum on mediation. I might talk about that a little bit later. The purpose of my talk, or there are two purposes for my talk actually. One is to introduce you to the work of IMI Ethics Committee work, and also I would like to talk to you about the possibility of developing transnational mediation ethics standards. And IMI is a non-profit organization. It develops international professional mediation standards for mediation and mediators in order to promote the use of mediation and the quality of mediation around the world. We believe that if you do that, then you can create public trust in mediation and help it to be used more. Examples of the work of IMI are creating standards of mediator competence, standards for intercultural practice, standards of professional conduct and ethics for mediators, certification schemes for mediators and for mediation advocates. And IMI acts through international teams of experts and task force that come from dozens of countries. It develops training materials and information materials and make them available to the public to use for free. It also gathers shareholders in the field of mediation worldwide, promote understanding of mediation, and its certification schemes helps to certify mediators and lawyers around the world, and there are hundreds of such certified mediators in over 30 countries. IMI Ethics Committee, which I had, has developed a code of ethics, code of professional conduct, and it also has a procedure for investigating complaints against mediators. In 2020, the organization, IMI, decided to renew the activity of the Ethics Committee, and a new composition of members was appointed with international representation. Today, there are 20 committee members from 9 countries, including the United States of America, Australia, Singapore, South Africa, Kenya, Lithuania, Serbia, Italy, and Israel. And among the reasons for the renewal of the committee's operation is the entry into force of the Singapore Convention of Human Rights. And the Singapore Convention of Human Rights has been adopted by at least 10 states, right? There are more signatories and than that. There are 55 signatory states, but already 10 have ratified the convention. And the convention is important because it allows for the recognition of the legal validity of mediation agreements which were made abroad in cross-border disputes. The convention refers, among other things, to the professional standards applicable to mediators and mediation, and it states that inappropriate behavior of mediator may be a reason for refusing to grant a remedy of enforcement of the mediation agreement. And this increases the interest in mediator standards. So the tasks of the ethics committee include the re-examination and update of IMI Code of Ethics. It also re-examines and updates the complaint investigation procedure. Well, that's one of another task of the committee. We collaborate with international partners to promote the establishment of international standards for mediators and mediation. And we also collaborate for provision of knowledge through seminars and conferences. We already started working on redrafting the IMI Code of Ethics for mediators. We have been doing that on the last 4 years. It's a lot of work. What we are doing, what we have been doing, is use comparison sources, take ethical codes for mediators from the United States, from Australia, from some South Africa, from Europe, from Israel, from other sources, and then try and find and create one unified code for mediators, for IMI certified mediators. The code will guide IMI mediators worldwide, as well as mediation organizations that will decide to adopt it. And after its adoption, the ethics committee will invite mediators to submit ethical queries for consideration and issue ethical opinions. I've been engaging in such work in the last 10 years in Israel, where we formed such an ethics committee. We receive queries from mediators and we publish ethical opinions in order to help mediators know how to work, how to guide the actions. Now, there is an underlying question, I think, behind all that. And this is, if mediation is practiced in so many countries, and it does, and the practice of mediation is diverse and with numerous codes of ethics, is it a possibility at all, right? Is it possible to create a transnational uniform code of ethics for mediators? Could we achieve such goal? So I would like you to have a look at this pyramid, sources of mediators' ethics, that I used from the book I edited last year, right? And you can see here that mediators' ethics is made actually from different layers, right? The first layer are legal rules and case law that applies to mediators in a given jurisdiction. So in Argentina, right, you have your own laws on mediation. In Israel, we have our own laws, etc. A second level is voluntary mediator codes of conduct, which are adopted by the mediator or through membership. Mediators who belong to the American Bar Association, for example, use for guidance the model standards of conduct for mediators. Mediators in Europe have their own code, right? So that's another source of mediation norms. And a third source is role morality. And this is an idea that I've been researching and writing about in the last decade or so. Role morality, the idea that once you hold a role, perform a role, such as a lawyer or an accountant or a mediator, there are certain responsibilities that come with that work of yours, right? What you can see is that at least the area of law, right, the law changes among places. So how come we can talk about one type of mediation ethics? Well, this is because my research has shown that although we have mediation legislation in so many states, right, and mediator codes of conduct, and here you have examples from the United States, from Australia, from Ireland, from Europe, we can find that the definitions of mediations are quite the same. There are differences, but there are some core similarities between the way mediation is defined and treated in various jurisdictions. And more than that, in my work, right, and I already mentioned this book, Theory of Mediators Ethics, I looked at virtually dozens of codes of conduct for mediators and legislations from various places in the world. Again, the United States, Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ireland, Europe, right? Some examples from various places, though I must confess that because of my limited knowledge of languages, right? I speak Hebrew and English. I mostly focused on Anglo-American countries, but since then I've been able also to look at some other places, right? Singapore, Brazil, and other places. And what I found is that we can talk about a core common definition of mediation, right? The basic idea of a process in which a third party, sometimes we call him a neutral party or a partial party, helps other parties who have conflict to talk to each other, to negotiate with each other, to make decisions together, right? And this person does not have the ability or the power or the authority to impose a decision on the parties. And even though this is a relatively, you could say, small agreement between us, right? Between the different countries, between the different jurisdictions, it still helps us, together with the concept of role ethics, to come up with a certain list of norms of mediated ethics, which are almost universally, I would say, used, right? And I'm talking about what you can see here, right, is a kind of a model code of conduct for mediators that I established that looks at those obligations of mediators that you can find almost in any Anglo-American country. And as far as I've been able to look at until now, it's a list of norms that can be found in other countries as well. And you can see this list includes the most basic ethical norms of mediation, such as self-determination of the parties and impartiality of the mediator and conflicts of interest and the professional integrity of the mediator and requirements for honesty and confidentiality. And these norms, right, are not only general norms, they can also be specified more specifically, right, into the practice of mediation. And what we do in IMI Ethics Committee is that we are reviewing, revising, and trying to find these commonalities, these sameness, right, within mediation norms, and use them in one code of ethics that will apply to mediators around the world if they choose to accept this, right? Obviously, we don't impose any code on others. The idea is to share our knowledge, our thoughts with wider and wider audiences, like you, for example, and receive the feedbacks and see how much we are in agreement in our understanding of mediation and mediator ethics. So you'll see that what we did, or we've been doing in the last 2 years, is working in this international group of people from different states on the meaning of these norms, such as mediator competence, you can see here, and impartiality, right? And the idea of professional integrity, that the mediator, for example, must not confuse between his role as a mediator and his role as a lawyer or as a therapist, right? And what we do, or what we've done by that, is working together, right, to set this minimum list of mediation and mediator norms. And we believe that developing transnational ethical norms for mediators is possible and will contribute to a quality of practice of mediation globally. And we invite you to take part in this process by following our work at IMI. We'll shortly be publishing some of our work and solicit contribution and feedback from the public, and we'll appreciate very much if you decide to join us in this process. So thank you very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your seminar.